The generality of death and dying in the American culture distinguishes many ideals and the profound views of literature. Literature holds importance on understanding the concepts of death and also an everlasting eternity based upon spirituality. Our culture combines views and beliefs within many branches of spirituality to understand elements of an afterlife which is left unknown to life. Within these elements, we begin to understand the tragedy, love, life, and spirituality used in acknowledging the province of American literature and its components which we live by day to day. Literature expresses many diverse expressions on death, such as grasping a hold of fear and death and the broken fragments explaining views of an afterlife, the conception of living a life without its true potentials, dying honorably or dying dishonorably, by overcoming a previous life and using death as an escape, coping with the loss of a child, and also by dying with a sense of justification. As we prepare to live out the end of our lives, we can relate to literature to fuse our own perception of death with that of our culture and build our own emotional and social development with combining literature to complete our ethical views.
The traumatic death of an infant child can be devastating for both the parents and the extended family of the parents. Guilt is felt by all family members, each one thinking that they could have done something to prevent the infant's death. Blame is also an emotional roller coaster families use to rationalize the infant's passing. Avoidance is also another way parents deal with the death of their child. The mother and father avoid talking to each other or to relatives and friends about the loss of the small life. This can lead to major communication problems later on in the parent's love life and can ultimately result in a divorce. Both of these emotions are reflected in literature in the book Shiloh, written by Bobby Ann Mason. Shiloh's protagonist, Norma Jean, lost her baby when little Randy was 4 months old due to SIDS. Norma Jean was very young, just out of high school, and was not yet married to her soon-to-be husband Leroy. Norma Jean and Leroy both feel that there was something they could have done to save Randy the night he passed. Leroy started truck driving and was able to avoid Norma Jean and her mother, Mabel, for a long while. Norma Jean fills her days with random hobbies and jobs to forget about the pain she feels about the death of her only son. Mabel reminds Norma Jean every day about the loss of Randy. When Leroy returns home on convalescent leave from work, he and Norma Jean are faced to deal with all the emotions of guilt, blame, and avoidance. As a whole, our culture believes it is preferable to die honorably rather than dishonorably. This is one of the ways we ease our own grief. If a person dies heroically, we are thankful that they died so well. It reflects well on the rest of the person's life. If a person dies in shame, we are horrified. The dishonorable death compounds everything bad that person ever did in life. In the novel Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Harry Potter sacrifices himself to kill the evil wizard Lord Voldemort. In offering his own life to save the rest of the world, he prepares to die in the most honorable way possible. In a plot twist that shows humanity's great respect for heroes, Harry Potter is brought back from the dead as a reward for his sacrifice. For the rest of his life, he is even more highly regarded by all those who knew what he was prepared to risk. Lord Voldemort, however, dies in shame, having ripped apart his soul by committing hundreds of murders. When he dies by his own spell, his folly is finally recognized, and his shameful death only adds to his infamy. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is a reflection of themes prevalent in real life, especially regarding death. It takes the views of our culture and transforms them into an entertaining package. This book and many others take the opportunity of entertaining to also comment on cultural beliefs.
Death is inevitable. Eternal life is faith. Fear is the in-between of knowing and prayer. Many individuals synchronize death to disaster, and some reveal it to be a ritual. Exploring underneath the layer of fear can bring a sense of acceptance, or possibly denial, a planned destiny, or perhaps an act of God. Understanding depth in this matter, one could explore the work of Mitch Albom titled The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. This extraordinary literature deeply exalts life on earth and the afterlife in eternity. Within the chapters of this book tells a story of a man who risked his own life for the salvation of a young girl. He then travels through heaven, meeting 5 individuals he once knew in his former life. Each of these people teach him a very important lesson on accepting the wheel of fate and knowing that there is no eternal fear in life, but only hope. He learns that every single person is connected in some way, which one must learn to forgive. We must relieve anger, must realize that love is everlasting, and that life is one big Ferris wheel which never stops spinning. Fearing death does no justice. If we can all form our memories and hold them tight against our hearts, then the fear turns into relief. That relief which brings us to an acceptance that life is not eternal. It must end, but with the amount of faith you can carry, the more fear escapes, and the longer eternity will keep you safe. To understand fully, one must be able to realize that life and death are intertwined, and to understand either, we must understand both.
In literature, death is often seen as the ultimate escape and way out. It is often portrayed as the only way to end all worldly conflicts and the only way to finally be in complete serenity. For most, death is a sensitive subject and is not usually seen as something to resolve our problems. In fact, most feel that death only intensifies the problems we are already facing. We often think of death as being the unfavorable part of life that will eventually happen when the time is necessary, but for some, death is the only option left. In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, death is the only way for the 2 young lovers to be together forever. It was obvious that the 2 feuding families would never agree on the marriage between Romeo and Juliet, but the 2 could not bear to live life without each other. Their bonds of love were too strong for them to ignore. They had to be together. When Juliet learned she had only a few days until her marriage with another man would happen, she decided that death would be her escape. Romeo was not informed that Juliet had faked her death, so when he found his wife dead, he then killed himself to be with her. Juliet woke from her sleep to find her Romeo dead at her side. She too could not bear to be without him. She then ended her own life so the 2 could ultimately be together forever in peace.
In literature, death has evolved from an action that happens to an idea that becomes a moral dilemma. Many modern stories are incorporating moral issues into complex storylines. These stories are meant to break down readers' paradigms and question what is right and what is wrong. When an author of a story decides to kill off a character, depending on the story, the reader must think, why is this character being killed off? Does this person deserve to die? Is it right that this character is having to die? The story of Mice and Men is a perfect example of this idea. The story of Mice and Men is the story about 2 brothers named George and Lenny, who embark on a series of events that change their lives. George and Lenny begin as drifters roaming throughout the farmlands of Northern California. They settle on a farm, looking just to make enough money to move on to the next town. But Lenny, who is mentally retarded, takes a liking to the wife of another man who lives on the farm where he works. Lenny accidentally kills the man's wife and sparks a frenzy among the farm workers. George and Lenny abandon the farm as the workers try to track down and kill Lenny. Knowing that the angry workers would catch up to them, George makes the difficult decision to shoot Lenny in the head before the rest of the workers can get to them.